Pornland is an hour-long documentary. It depicts how young girls are manipulated and forced into commercial sex industry. It became the most downloaded episode on Dan Rather Reports, and it's played a significant role in raising awareness that this global abuse is not something about some country far away. It's taking place in our backyards. And it's not just about foreign women and children who are being brought in. It's about our own people. Not that others matter less, but I'm just saying we've got to understand this is happening here, among us. And I appreciated so much the producer saying people think about sex trafficking as something that happens in other countries, but it's much, much bigger problem here than they know. And this idea for the story came from an editorial in the Oregonian about the sex trafficking, and that same month, then the three honorees tonight got together to address this. So make sure you see the documentary. It's on Dan Rather Reports, which is HDNet. It aired first in May 2010, had an encore presentation in November. It has generated enormous concern, and it's an excellent educational tool. The people who are being honored tonight are receiving the Ida B. Wells Award. Now, many of us know the name Ida B. Wells, but don't know her story. She was born a slave, and after the Civil War, she became the journalist who documented for the world the murderous lynchings that were happening throughout the South. And people say, well, wait a minute, let's not get overly dramatic here, like comparing what's happening with commercial sex and prostitution, trafficking, comparing that with lynchings. But friends, this is modern day slavery, and it's an abolitionist movement that several of the people in this room are leading. It is nothing less than that. And at some point, your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, they're going to ask you, like I asked my grandmother, where were you? Where were you when slavery was going on in this country, when black people were being bought and sold? And so I have to ask us, where are we as this is happening in our community? With all of that background and with all of the weight of this terrible, terrible problem and the responsibility we all must bear, let me then express huge appreciation and thanks to Kim Balin, Sian Garlick, and Laura Minier.
So first and foremost, we'd like to thank Women's E-News. And we're amazingly humbled and honored to be receiving the Ida B. Wells Award. Just sort of reading over her bio it's incredible to see how much she accomplished, and we hope that we can accomplish 1/100th of what she did in her life. And we also want to thank Dan Rather, who has really been championing a lot of women's stories. Our program's done a number of stories in Afghanistan and a lot of topics focusing on sort of what women are going through all over the world these days. And in fact, this story started when Dan came up to us one day, to Kim and I, and said, I want to do a story about sex trafficking, maybe in Southeast Asia. And we said, okay. We started looking around, and Kim came across a story about Portland, and we were really shocked that this was happening in our own country. And I do think it's something that people don't really realize is going on. And since working on this story, I think we've, every day Kim and I and Laura turn to each other and say, oh, did you see this article in the paper about this girl who got picked up in a mall and wound up, as a prostitute? And you hear it more and more every day. And I think it's something that hopefully is something that people are beginning to realize is happening and also fight against it. We also want to thank Sergeant Doug Justice of the, he's retired now, but of the Portland Police Department, who is, when we talk to him, you kind of wish you could have, every police officer could be like him. He's a fierce, fierce fighter for these girls, and he has saved a number of them and is still working to do more. And lastly, we'd like to thank the girls who spoke to us. They were so brave, and they'd been through hell and back, and they were willing to sit down and to our audience and to us sort of reveal the kind of horror of their everyday lives of leaving school and going right to prostitution, at 3 o'clock, walking out the door and heading over to what they call the track, and just, there you go, don't come home until you've brought in, $1,000. It doesn't matter if it's raining, it's snowing, you cannot come home until then. And it was just emotionally, it was just very raw interviews and really compelling. And so we thank them most of all for coming forward and sharing their stories with us.
And I just want to add, as the editor, I'm a storyteller, and I had the privilege of making several pieces for Dan on the lives of Afghan women and the suffering that they go through every day. And I'm just struck in reflecting and receiving this award with Kim and Sian that how easy it is to miss what's going on under our noses, how it's almost harder to tell the stories and accept the ones that are in our own backyard, and to accept the injustices that we see in our workplace, in our own families, and in our own thinking. And I believe that, with this piece, it's just really important to look here as much as anywhere with just as much passion if we really want to change our behavior and rewrite our own stories to challenge the destructive and harmful ways of being that we see, and create new options, I think, and create new stories that could potentially ripple out into the world. And I just wanted to end with a quote from one of my favorite storytellers who said, "We are volcanoes. When we women offer our experience as our truth, as human truth, all the maps change. There are new mountains." That was Ursula Le Guin. So thank you.
That's a powerful way to start, I would say. 3 young women journalists think what they're going to do in the next 20 years. And Swanee Hunt, she is true to herself at every moment.